The sign in the window was clear. We reserve the right to refuse service. But everyone knew what it really meant. No coloreds. Jimmy's barbershop on 125th Street had been there since 1947, right on the edge of Harlem, where black and white neighborhoods met. Jimmy DeLuca was the owner. 52 years old, Italian, from Brooklyn originally. He'd moved to the border of Harlem because rent was cheap, and he thought he could build a business serving white customers who still lived in the area. He had one rule that he never broke: no Negroes in his chair. If a black man walked in, Jimmy would look up from whatever he was doing and say the same thing every time: "We're full up, try somewhere else." It didn't matter if the shop was empty, didn't matter if Jimmy was just sitting there reading the newspaper. The answer was always the same. And for 6 years, nobody challenged him. Until May 14th, 1953, the day Bumpy Johnson walked through his door. It was 2:30 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. Bumpy pushed open the door to Jimmy's barbershop. The bell above the door chimed. Jimmy looked up from the newspaper he was reading. His shop was empty. No customers, just him sitting in one of the 3 barber chairs. He saw Bumpy, saw the expensive suit, the fedora, the calm, controlled walk, and he saw the color of his skin. Jimmy set down his newspaper. "We're closed." Bumpy looked around the shop. Lights on, door unlocked, sign said open. "Looks open to me," Bumpy said. "We're closed. To you." Bumpy walked further into the shop, stopped in front of Jimmy's chair. "I need a haircut." "Then go to a Negro barbershop. There's one 2 blocks that way." Jimmy pointed north, deeper into Harlem. "But I'm here now, and your sign says you're open." Jimmy stood up. He was 6 feet tall, heavy-set, used to intimidating people with his size. "Listen, I don't cut colored hair. I don't know how. It's different. You need someone who knows what they're doing." Bumpy smiled slightly. "I have very simple hair, Mr. DeLuca. Any barber can cut it." "How do you know my name?" "Because I know everything that happens on 125th Street. This is my neighborhood." Jimmy's face hardened. "This is my shop, and I decide who sits in my chair. Now get out before I call the cops." "Call them," Bumpy said calmly. "Tell them Bumpy Johnson is asking for a haircut. See what they say." Jimmy recognized the name. Everyone in Harlem knew Bumpy Johnson. But Jimmy wasn't backing down. Not in his own shop, not from anyone. "I don't care who you are. I'm not cutting your hair. Now get out." Bumpy stood there for a moment, looking at Jimmy DeLuca, seeing not just this barber, but every white man who'd ever said no to him because of his skin. He remembered being 7 years old in South Carolina, walking into a general store with his mother, wanting a piece of candy from the jar on the counter. The store owner had looked at his mother and said, "Coloreds use the back door." His mother had taken his hand, led him around to the alley, to the back entrance, where garbage bins sat and rats scurried between crates. That's where they'd been served, in an alley, like they were less than human. Bumpy remembered being 15, trying to get a job at a construction site in Charleston. The foreman had looked at him and laughed. "I don't hire they're lazy, unreliable." Bumpy had proven himself everywhere he'd gone after that, built a reputation, built an empire, earned respect through intelligence, strategy, and an unshakable code. But no matter how much power he accumulated, no matter how much money he made, there were still places where the color of his skin mattered more than anything else. And he was tired of it. Tired of being told he wasn't good enough, wasn't clean enough, wasn't human enough. So he decided that today, in this barbershop, that pattern would end. Not with violence, with something more powerful than violence, with dignity. Bumpy looked at Jimmy for a long moment. Then he turned and walked toward the door. Jimmy relaxed slightly. Problem solved.
But Bumpy didn't leave. He locked the door from the inside, flipped the open sign to closed. "What the hell are you doing?" Jimmy demanded. Bumpy walked back toward him. "You won't cut my hair because I'm black. You hide behind excuses, but that's the truth. You think my money isn't good enough. You think I'm not good enough. I think you should leave before—" Bumpy pulled back his jacket, revealed a straight razor in a leather holster on his belt. Jimmy's eyes went wide. "Sit down," Bumpy said quietly. "You're not going to sit down." Jimmy sat. His legs suddenly felt weak. Bumpy pulled out the straight razor, opened it. The blade caught the afternoon light coming through the window. "You're a barber," Bumpy said. "You've been cutting hair for what, 30 years?" 28, Jimmy whispered. 28 years. You know how to use a razor, how to handle a blade, how to cut hair without cutting skin." Bumpy walked behind Jimmy's chair. "So now you're going to teach me." "What?" "You won't cut my hair. Fine. So I'll cut yours, and you're going to tell me exactly how to do it." Jimmy started to stand. Bumpy put a hand on his shoulder, pressed down firmly. "Don't move, because if you do, this razor might slip, and I've never done this before, so I need you to stay very still." "You're insane," Jimmy said. His voice was shaking. "No, I'm making a point." Bumpy grabbed a handful of Jimmy's hair, brought the razor up to it. "Please," Jimmy said, "please don't."
Relax. I'm just giving you a haircut, like you give everyone else who walks through that door. Everyone except people who look like me. Bumpy was the first cut. He pulled the razor through Jimmy's hair, clumsy, uneven. A chunk of hair fell to the floor. "Oh, God," Jimmy whispered. "Tell me how to do it right," Bumpy said. "You're the expert." You need to hold the razor at an angle, not straight. Angle it." Bumpy adjusted his grip, made another cut, better this time. More hair fell to the floor. "Keep going," Bumpy said. "Teach me." For the next 20 minutes, Bumpy cut Jimmy's hair while Jimmy gave instructions through gritted teeth. "Shorter on the sides, longer on top. Blend it. No, not like that. Gentler. You're cutting too much." Bumpy worked slowly, methodically, learning as he went. When he was finished, Jimmy's hair was a disaster. Uneven, choppy, patches missing, completely ruined. Bumpy put the razor away, walked around to face Jimmy. "Look at yourself." There was a mirror in front of the barber chair. Jimmy looked at his reflection and saw what Bumpy had done to him. His hair, which he'd always kept neat, professional, was destroyed. You ruined it," Jimmy said. "Yes, I did. Because I'm not a barber. I don't know what I'm doing. Just like you claimed you didn't know how to cut my hair." Bumpy unlocked the door, opened it. "But we're not done yet." "What do you mean?" "Come with me." "I'm not going anywhere with you." Bumpy looked at him. "Yes, you are. Because if you don't, I'll come back tonight, and tomorrow night, and every night until you do." Jimmy stood on shaking legs, looked at his ruined hair in the mirror one more time. Then he followed Bumpy out of the shop. 3 p.m. Bumpy walked Jimmy 3 blocks north, into the heart of Harlem, to the intersection of 125th Street and Lenox Avenue, the busiest corner in the neighborhood. Hundreds of people walking past, shopping, talking, living their lives. Bumpy stopped in the middle of the sidewalk. "Sit," he said. "What?" "Sit down, right here." "In the middle of the street?" "Yes." Jimmy looked around. People were already starting to stare. "I'm not—" Bumpy grabbed his arm, firm, not violent, but unmistakable. "Sit down." Jimmy sat on the sidewalk, in the middle of 125th Street, in broad daylight. Bumpy pulled out his straight razor again. The crowd around them started to grow, people stopping, watching, wondering what was happening. "What are you doing?" Jimmy asked. His voice was barely a whisper now. "Finishing your haircut," Bumpy said. "In public, so everyone can see." He grabbed Jimmy's hair again, started cutting. But this time, Bumpy wasn't clumsy. This time he cut with precision, with skill, because Bumpy Johnson had spent 5 years in prison learning skills. All kinds of skills, including
how to cut hair.
He'd learned from the prison barber, an old man who taught him the trade during long, boring days at Sing Sing. Bumpy had never needed to use the skill before, never had a reason to, until now. He cut Jimmy's hair slowly, deliberately, making sure everyone in the growing crowd could see. He evened out the sides, blended the top, fixed all the damage he'd done in the barbershop. By the time he finished, Jimmy's hair looked perfect, better than it had looked when Bumpy walked into the shop. The crowd was silent, watching, understanding what was happening without anyone saying a word. Bumpy put away his razor, looked down at Jimmy sitting on the sidewalk. "Stand up." Jimmy stood. His legs were trembling. Bumpy pulled out his wallet, took out $5, held it out. "For the haircut, the one you refused to give me." Jimmy stared at the money, didn't take it. "Take it," Bumpy said, "or I'll assume you work for free, and next time I need a haircut, I'll come find you again." Jimmy took the money. His hand was shaking. Bumpy turned to the crowd, at least 100 people now, all watching. "This is Jimmy DeLuca," Bumpy said, his voice carried across the street. "He owns a barbershop on 125th Street. Today, he told me he couldn't cut my hair because I'm black, said he didn't know how to cut colored hair." Bumpy gestured to Jimmy's head. "So I cut his hair instead, right here, in the middle of Harlem, where everyone could see." He looked at Jimmy. "And now everyone knows. You don't refuse service because you can't do the job. You refuse service because of hate, because of ignorance, because you think some people are worth less than others." Bumpy took a step closer. "From now on, your shop serves everyone. Black, white, doesn't matter. You put a sign in your window, 'All customers welcome.' And if anyone tells me that you refuse service to a black customer, I'll be back. And next time, I won't stop at just hair." Jimmy nodded frantically. Yes, I'll do it, I swear." "Good." Bumpy turned and walked away. The crowd parted for him, let him pass. And Jimmy DeLuca stood there in the middle of 125th Street, his hair perfect, his dignity destroyed. Everyone watching, everyone knowing what had happened. By 4 p.m., the story had spread through Harlem. Bumpy Johnson cut a racist barber's hair in the middle of the street, made him sit on the sidewalk while 100 people watched, paid him $5 for the privilege, and sent a message: "Refuse service to black people in Harlem, and Bumpy Johnson will make you wish you hadn't." The next day, May 15th, 1953, 7:45 a.m. Jimmy DeLuca didn't sleep that night. He'd gone home after the incident, sat in his kitchen, stared at the wall. His wife had asked what happened to his hair. It looked different, professional, but she'd never seen him get it cut anywhere except his own shop. Jimmy didn't answer, just went to bed. But he couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the crowd, saw the faces of all those black men and women watching him sit on the sidewalk, saw Bumpy Johnson standing over him with that razor, heard the silence. That was the worst part. Not anger, not shouting, just silence. 100 people watching him be reduced to nothing. At 6 a.m., Jimmy got out of bed. His wife was still sleeping. He got dressed, walked to his shop in the pre-dawn darkness. He had a decision to make. He could leave, pack up, move back to Brooklyn, pretend this never happened, or he could face it. At 7:45 a.m., Jimmy unlocked the door to his barbershop and saw them. A line already forming outside his shop. 20 men, all black, standing quietly, waiting. Jimmy's heart started pounding. This was a test. He recognized some of the faces, men who'd walked past his shop for years, who'd seen his "We reserve the right to refuse service" sign and kept walking. Now they were here. The first man in line was elderly, maybe 70 years old, wearing a clean but worn suit, a church-going man, Jimmy could tell. "You open?" the old man asked. Jimmy's mouth was dry. "Yes." "You serving everyone today?"
Jimmy looked at the line. 20 men, all watching him, waiting to see if yesterday's promise meant anything. Yes, Jimmy said quietly. Everyone. The old man smiled slightly. Good. Then I'd like a haircut, please. Jimmy held the door open. The old man walked in, sat in the first chair, the same chair Jimmy had been sitting in when Bumpy walked in yesterday. Jimmy put the cape around the old man's shoulders. His hands were shaking slightly. How would you like it cut? Jimmy asked. Short on the sides, a little longer on top, same as you'd cut any other man's hair. Jimmy picked up his scissors, took a breath, and started cutting. He'd been cutting hair for 28 years. His hands knew what to do even when his mind was racing. He cut carefully, professionally, the same quality service he gave his white customers. When he finished, the old man looked in the mirror, smiled. That's good work. Thank you. Jimmy nodded. That'll be 75 cents. The old man paid, stood up, looked Jimmy in the eye. You know why I came here today? Jimmy said. To test me. No, to give you a chance. What you did yesterday, refusing Mr. Johnson, that was wrong. What he did to you afterward, that was justice. But justice can be a teacher if you let it. The old man walked toward the door, stopped, looked back. My name is Reverend Thomas Mitchell. I preach at Abyssinian Baptist. 2,000 people in my congregation. If I tell them you've changed, that you're serving everyone with respect, they'll come. But if I tell them you're still the same man with a different sign, they'll never walk through that door again. He paused. What should I tell them? Jimmy looked at the 19 other men still waiting outside, looked at Reverend Mitchell. Tell them, Jimmy said slowly, that I was wrong, that I let hate guide my business, and that I'm grateful for the chance to do better. Reverend Mitchell studied his face for a long moment. Then he nodded. I'll tell them. He walked out. The next man in line walked in. 10:30 a.m. By mid-morning, Jimmy had cut 8 haircuts, all black customers, some from the line, some who'd heard the story and came to see if it was true. Then a white customer walked in. Eddie Romano, one of Jimmy's regulars, came every 2 weeks for 15 years. Eddie stopped in the doorway, saw a black man in one of the chairs, another waiting. Eddie looked at Jimmy. What's going on? Serving all customers now, no exceptions. Eddie's face hardened. You're cutting colored hair now? I'm cutting everyone's hair, same as I should have been doing all along. You heard what happened yesterday, heard that gangster humiliated you in the street. He did, and I deserved it. Eddie shook his head. You're making a mistake, Jimmy. Your white customers won't come back if you're serving them. Then I'll serve new customers. You'll go out of business. Jimmy looked at Eddie, at this man he'd known for 15 years, this man who'd always been polite, always tipped well, always shook his hand when he left. This man who was also a racist. Maybe, Jimmy said, but I'd rather go out of business doing the right thing than stay in business doing the wrong thing. Eddie stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned and walked out. Jimmy watched him go. The black man in the waiting chair spoke up. You just lost a customer. I know. You okay with that? Jimmy thought about it, thought about yesterday, thought about sitting on that sidewalk while Bumpy Johnson taught him what humiliation felt like. Yes, Jimmy said. I'm okay with that. 5 p.m. Closing time. By the end of the day, Jimmy had cut 23 haircuts, 18 black customers, 5 white customers who didn't care about the new policy. He'd made more money than he usually made on a Thursday. But more than that, something had shifted in him. Every black customer who walked through that door treated him with caution at first, watching, waiting to see if this was real or just an act. But when Jimmy treated them with the same respect he'd given his white customers for 28 years, they relaxed, talked, told stories, laughed. And Jimmy realized something he should have known all along. They were just men, coming in for haircuts, no different from anyone else. At 5:30 p.m., as Jimmy was sweeping up the hair from the floor, someone knocked on the door. He looked up. Bumpy Johnson was standing outside. Jimmy's heart jumped into his throat. Bumpy gestured, asking permission to enter. Jimmy unlocked the door. Bumpy walked in, looked around the shop, saw the new sign in the window. All customers welcome, no exceptions. "You kept your word," Bumpy said. "I did." "How was business today?" "Good. Better than usual, actually." Bumpy nodded. "I heard. Reverend Mitchell spread the word. You'll have more customers tomorrow, and the day after. Word travels fast in Harlem when a man changes for the better." Jimmy didn't know what to say. "I also heard you lost some white customers," Bumpy continued. "A few, not many. And you're okay with that?" Jimmy thought about Eddie Romano walking out, thought about the choice he'd made. "Yes, I'm okay with that." Bumpy smiled slightly. "Good, because the customers you lost, they were never really loyal. They were only loyal as long as you shared their hate. The customers you gained today, they'll be loyal because you treated them with dignity." He turned to leave. "Mr. Johnson," Jimmy said. Bumpy stopped, looked back. "Thank you." "For what?" "For teaching me. Yesterday, when you cut my hair in the street, I was humiliated, angry. But today, serving people I'd refused for 6 years, I understood what you were showing me." Jimmy's voice was quiet. "I was treating people the way I felt yesterday, making them feel less than human, and I didn't even realize it until I felt it myself." Bumpy studied him for a moment. Some men never learn that lesson. They go their whole lives making others feel small and never understanding what they're doing. You learned it in one day. That's rare. "I'm sorry," Jimmy said, "for yesterday, for the 6 years before yesterday, for every person I turned away. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to them. Every customer who walks through that door from now on, you give them the respect you should have given them all along. That's how you make amends." Bumpy walked to the door. "And Mr. DeLuca, if you ever go back to the old way, if you ever refuse service to someone because of their skin, I will come back, and next time I won't be as gentle." He walked out. Jimmy stood in his empty shop, looking at the new sign in the window. All customers welcome, no exceptions. He would keep that sign up for the next 15 years, until the day he retired and sold the shop to a young black barber named Marcus Cole, who would run it for another 30 years, and every new barber who worked there would hear the story.